Started. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here on time. As more people trickle in, as I said, they're going to miss the best part. And you know what? It's their loss. To get started, I want to tell you a quick story about an experience I had this morning. This is not how I was going to start. However,
Mhm.
it turned out to just be incredibly connected to what we're going to talk about today. I got a very early phone call. It was early for me, and the person I was talking to is from LA, so it was 3 hours earlier for them. It's a very good friend of mine who is a weather scientist and is hired by different factions of the federal government and private corporations to both prognosticate on what's going to happen and also to give the clients ideas of what they should do based on what's happening. And he's been working on a fascinating project. As you know, California in general and Los Angeles County specifically has water problems. They simply don't have enough water to provide for the growing populace. And because California is such a large agricultural state and uses and grows the kind of things that use a lot of water, like pecans or pecans, they have a really, really problematic water condition. And if you remember the movie Chinatown, that's what it was about. Who controls water really controls the state. And one of the things they have done in order to capture as much rainwater as possible is to limit the amount of non-permeable surface treatments. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with facts and figures. I'm just giving you the background. But non-permeable surface means the kind of paving that doesn't let water through. In LA County, they do not want you to pave with any sort of material that will force the water to run off. Rather, they want you to use porous materials. It could be sand, it could be wood chips, it could be gravel, it can be brick with spaces between them. But what they don't want are concrete, for example, or fiberglass or astroturf surfaces because the water can't get through. It can't go to the water table. And they use various surveillance methods to know whether properties have permeable surfaces or not. They use drones and they use airplanes and they photograph. And from the photographs, they have ways of telling. The problem is that a lot of the developers and a lot of the builders have caught on to this. And so they plant trees with very large canopies. And what happens is, even if there is a non permeable surface, they open holes in it where they can plant these trees, and the trees create a canopy. And then you cannot see what's on top of the ground. So you can't see if people are violating these requirements. And the way that the government is able to enforce this is through taxation. If you have a non-permeable surface, you pay a lot in taxes. So this weather scientist was brought in to figure out how can they get more people to conform to the law so they have less surfaces that are allowing runoff and they can absorb the water. And he has come up with this incredible solution, which is drones that are mounted with LiDAR devices, which has something to do with radar and laser. And these LiDAR devices can actually see through the canopy. And so they can fly them over properties that they can't see the surface of. And they can record what's below the canopy. And then they can determine if, in fact, these landowners, are meeting the requirements or not. Sounds like a fascinating and very inexpensive technical solution to a very big problem. The problem is that this guy's a scientist, which means he needs to explain the parameters of the lenses that they use. He needs to talk about the distance of the scope and the angle and the percentage of accuracy. And he can't get any of the bureaucrats in the county to buy into his program. And he told me, I keep explaining it to them in these terms so anybody could understand how well it works. Of course, that's not true. What he does is he tells them what he knows. And you know the old saying, when you're explaining, you're losing. And he spends a lot of time explaining. So we had gone through this whole thing a while ago, and he called me this morning to say that the suggestions that we had discussed worked. And quite simply, all I asked him was, okay, pick the area you're working on, which was a small section within Los Angeles County that he's using as proof of concept. And tell me, based on your analysis based on having run this pilot program, no pun intended, how much tax money is not being collected because the county is not using this technology. And he said within this small area, just a couple square miles, he estimates that there is $30 million of taxes that are not being paid because the county doesn't know what's underneath these trees and can't figure out how much these people would owe. I said, well, it's very simple. Why don't you go to the person who runs this department and show him how he can, or she, I don't know which, can walk into their boss, can walk into a county commission meeting, can go to the mayor and say, guess what? I just found $30 million. Forget about what you're doing. Forget about how you're doing it. Forget about your scientific proof. Forget about the PhDs you have and the certificates you have. Forget about the program you set up with the drone company and the LiDAR company to combine the two technologies. Don't talk about any of that. Talk about how you can find $30 million. And don't say that you're going to find it. Explain how they can find it. Make them the hero. It's very simple. And in fact, it worked. The bureaucrat, of course, ran off to his or her boss and described what they had figured out. And now they're going to move forward with this program. But think about how often what we spend our time doing is explaining, is showing why something should work, why something shouldn't work, why somebody should hire us, why somebody wants us to be their architect, their accountant, their speaker, their engineer, why they want us to be their career placement person, why they want us to buy their products, instead of doing something very simple, which is simply know what they want. It was pretty obvious with the bureaucrat. We know what the bureaucrat wants. The bureaucrat wants to go to their boss and say, look what I've done. Look how much money I've added to the coffers. Years ago, I was in a conference room with the top people at Discovery Channel. We had won the Discovery Channel account. It was kind of in the beginning of the whole cable explosion. It was in the mid 80s. And John Hendricks, the CEO of Discovery Channel, was explaining his strategic vision for the company. Now, understand, back then, there wasn't that much on cable. Today, it's what does Bruce Springsteen sing, 57 channels and nothing on, or 500 channels and nothing on. But back then, you had basically HBO, ESPN, CNN, and there were a few others.
Socials, that's all I know.
You had the Weather Channel, and you had a few others. But basically, you only had those channels. So Hendricks brought all the marketing people from Discovery Channel into this office in Bethesda, Maryland, and he explained that his vision for the channel was to be everybody's second favorite channel. And everybody started grumbling. Everybody started looking around. He wants us to be second best? What kind of leader stands up and says, go out there and be second best? And it was pretty obvious that something was amiss. And somebody finally raised their hand and said, I came here from ABC or CBS or wherever it was, and I can't believe you're telling me that I came all this way. I changed careers so that I can be second best. And Hendricks explained that the people we deal with have their favorite signals already because we want to be a channel for almost everybody. They said, if you're a movie guy, you're watching HBO. That's what you watch. If you love the news, you're watching CNN. If you love sports, you're watching ESPN. You're already committed to those programs. However, there's a time when you tune in and you've already to HBO and you've already seen the movie. It wasn't like now when we have it on demand. You've already seen that movie, or you missed the beginning, or you're going to miss the end, so you don't want to watch the movie. There's a time if you're a sports person and you tune into ESPN, you can't watch the whole game. So back then you wanted to videotape it, or you don't care about the teams, or it's a terrible game. Same with the news. If you've watched the news cycle on CNN, it's gone around once. Now there's telling the same stories again. What Hendricks said was, I want to be everybody's second favorite channel. So when the movie is something you've seen before, you'll go see what's on Discovery Channel. If the game is a game you're not interested in, you'll go see what's on Discovery Channel. If you've already seen the news cycle, you'll go see what's on Discovery Channel. The idea was to create something that every consumer would want. And that's exactly what, to mix my metaphors, the weather scientist did not do. He didn't care at all what the consumer wanted, his buyer, his customer. What he cared was what he had accomplished. So, rule number one, to sell things nobody else can sell is quite simply know your audience and know what they want. I can't tell you how many times, as an agency owner, or even today when I'm speaking to someone who wants to become a speaker and speak a keynote at conferences around the world, I'll say to them, who's your audience? And they'll say, everybody. Well, that's not true. There's almost no companies in the world that sell to everybody. And how can you know what your audience wants if you don't know who your audience is? So one of the basic tenets of figuring out how to get people to want to buy your products or your services and want to buy those products or services for more money is to know who they are and what they want. Know your audience, know what they want. But here's the big problem. Very often, even if you know who your audience is, they don't know what they want. And that makes your job very difficult. I see Sue nodding yes, because you probably did that a million times in career exchange, where you would place someone based on what your client told you they wanted. And then, oh, guess what? That person's not for us, but they meet every one of the things you told us. Yeah, but we did, right? That's the way it works. When I ran the agency, at some point I noticed that we would win clients and everybody was very excited and we would do what I thought was really great work for them. But then came 2-3 years, whatever the contract was, they would tell us the dreaded words, we want to see who else is out there. And I didn't understand why. If we'd done such good work for them and we had good relationships with them, why did they want to change and maybe see if there was another agency they should talk to? And what you know from being a business owner, by the way, is that acquisition, new business, finding new clients is very sexy. We all love it. It's fun. You get to go to networking, or you go play golf, or you go meet with people, or you go running with them, or you go to events. It's fun. It's sexy. You get to present. You put on your nice clothes, but it's expensive. Retention, doing the job, showing up every day on time, providing the information that your clients need. Retention is boring, but it's very profitable because it doesn't cost you anything to keep clients. It costs you a lot to find them. It doesn't cost a lot to keep them. So I had figured out that we needed to increase our retention while we worked on our acquisition. We needed to acquire the clients, but once we got them, we needed to keep them. And so I decided to go talk to clients and find out what it was they wanted. And I remember sitting with a woman who ran a large hotel chain. And I remember saying to her, okay, you've signed this contract with us, but what I want to know is when it expires, let's say 3 years from now, what will we have done that when I give you the new contract, you just sign it? Because of course, there's no question why that you would ever change. What do you want? And she said, oh, it's easy. We want more people to stay in our hotel. I said, okay, for that, you don't need to pay us. All you need to do is lower your prices. If you cut your prices in half, you'll fill your hotel. And of course, she looks at me like I have two heads and she says, no, you don't understand. We want to make more money from these rooms, not less. I said, oh, well, that's easy too. You don't need to hire us for that. All you need to do is double your prices. Then every person who stays in a room will spend twice as much money. Makes sense, right? And she said, no, you don't understand. By the way, I did understand, but she didn't understand. We want more people to spend more money. I said, but you didn't say that. She said, yes, I did. I told you I wanted more people. I said, right, you wanted more people. You didn't like my solution for that. Then you told me you wanted more money. You didn't like my solution for that either. Then you told me you wanted more people to spend more money. That's a very different assignment. To which she said, well, but it's obvious. But the point was, it wasn't obvious. Now, hotels run themselves by something called RevPAR, which is revenue per available room. So if you know the business, you know what they want. But if nobody identifies it, there's no way to live up to a metric that someone can look back at and say, oh, well, that was worthwhile. So not only do you need to know who your customer or your client is, but you have to know what they want. And the biggest problem is, of course, that often they don't know. And if you're in a company that provides creative solutions or innovation, they don't even know what you're going to provide is possible. There's the famous Steve Jobs line. We all know it. It's not my customer's business to know what they want next, but it is our business. And so we have to do the work to figure out what is it that our customers want from us. But that brings up then the second point, which is you know what they want, but do you know what you want? And if you think about it, what you'll discover is that you probably don't. I want you all to write down a word or two. You're going to pick the word, but I want you, and don't yell this out because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I want you to see the answer. So I want you to write down, what do I want? Try to do it in 1, 2, or 3 words. Right now, we're just talking about life in general. You can narrow this down to your business, or you can just make it about your business, or you can make it about a particular client relationship or any relationship really. But quite simply, just write down 1, 2, 3 words. What do I want? And just put it down. Now, my guess is, and having done this, I've asked this question now, you will be an additional, how many we have here? 12, 16. You'll be an additional 30 people I can add to my list. I have asked this question of over 1,000 people because I ask it when I speak at conferences, and those people add up very, very quickly. I've probably asked more, but I've asked people personally at least 1,000 times, what do you want? And everybody says one of 3 things. Now, don't be a stickler here. You might have used a different word, but everybody says one of 3 things. 1, I want to be rich. 2, I want to be happy. And or 3, I want to be fulfilled. You might have used a different word. You might have said financially secure. You might have said, I want FU money. There's a million ways to say rich. You might have said happy. You might have said content. You might have said satisfied. There's a million ways to say that. And fulfillment also. What does fulfillment mean? Is it religious? Is it spiritual? Is it business-wise? Is it a personal drive? There's a million ways to say it. But everybody I've spoken to says one of those 3. The problem is those words are incredibly squishy, because if I say, what does rich mean? There's no true definition. To some people, rich means private aircraft. It means having someone take my 100-foot yacht over to Capri, and then I'll fly over in my jet. That means rich. We see lifestyles of the rich and famous all the time. To some people on the other end of the spectrum, rich means I want to be able to pay my rent, pay for my kids' medicine, make sure I have enough money to put my kids through college, and not drive this crappy car and get something better. That's what it means to them. So saying I want to be rich or I want to make money doesn't really mean anything. You actually have to put guardrails on it and say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Happy is the same way. What does happy actually mean? Does it mean content? Does it mean that I'm laughing uproariously for the 16 hours a day I'm awake? I mean, if happy is simply a point of everything being great, I think that's what opium dens used to provide. They would put you into a little bunk and they'd load you up with opium and you just lay there and giggle until you die, right? So happy doesn't actually mean very much either. And of course, as I said earlier, saying I want to be fulfilled, some people it's health, some people it's a religious obligation. There's lots of different ways to describe it, but it doesn't really mean anything. And the problem is you can't go somewhere if you don't know where you're trying to go. So if you've figured out who your customer is and what they want, point 1, you also need to understand, what do you want? Otherwise, you can win lots of business. You can sell lots of things that ultimately doesn't get you any closer to what it is you want to do. When I ran the agency, we had a series of 9 affiliate offices throughout Latin America. And when my book, Building Brand Value, came out, we redid it in Spanish, Construyendo Valor de Marcas. And I went and did a book tour in Latin America. And that's one of the ways we found these agencies. And they would use the book and what we did in the States to attract local business. The reason we wanted those accounts was that we would take our clients, Bacardi, Discovery Channel, Hasbro, and we would do marketing for them in Latin America using those offices. So I got a call from the gentleman who ran the office in Buenos Aires. Oscar Weiss was his name. And he was pitching a big bank in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. And he asked me if I would come down and do the pitch with him, which was great. It was great fun for me. And so I did. I went down, we practiced, we knew what we were going to say, and we went down there and we did the pitch. And on the drive back, Oscar is driving, I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I say to Oscar, sometimes when you pitch, you did a good job. Sometimes you stunk the place up. Most of the time, you think you did okay, but you don't really know what's going to happen. But every so often, when you pitch new business, no matter how many competitors there are, you just nailed it. You had the connection to the client. Everything you said landed. They were nodding yes. They were elbowing each other and taking notes. I said, Oscar, we won this business. I know it. I never like to say that and, jinx myself, but we won this business. We got this. We're in Buenos Aires. Let's go somewhere and let's have a steak and a bottle of red wine. And Oscar turns to me. We're driving about 80 miles an hour. And he looks at me, not where he's driving, and he says, "You know what you are?" And I said, no. He says, "You are a yak in the box." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You are a yak in the box." I said, "Okay, A, I don't know what a yak in the box is. And B, could you look forward, please?" And he says to me, "A yak in the box, a yak in the box. They send the box, we put you in, we wind it up, and then you jump out and you go, bleh, and then we put you back in and we send you home." So needless to say, it was a jack in the box. It's just that he had an Argentine accent. He said yak. Because I was thinking the animal with the horns, I didn't know what that was. So needless to say, we did not have a steak or a bottle of wine. He dropped me off at my hotel. And the next day I was in the airplane rather, and I was flying home, and I was really pissed that he had said this. And I couldn't believe it. I'd come all this way. We pitched this business. We were going to win the business. We did win it, by the way. We were going to win this business. And he was calling me a yak in the box. I couldn't believe it. Except all of a sudden it dawned on me, that's exactly what I was. Because I wanted to go down there, do my thing, and leave. I didn't want to spend time and work with the client and develop the programs. I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it so much that when I got home, I went out and I bought one of these that I keep on my desk to remind me of what I want. This is what I want to do. I want to be in the box, and then I want to spring up and do my job. And then I want to leave. He was exactly right. He understood. So all of a sudden, I knew what I wanted. A few years later, when I was selling the agency, I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And I realized that part of what I was going to do next needed to comport itself with this concept of being a yak in the box. I almost used a yak coming out of one of those as my logo, but I never got around to it. So we had a model that we used to do for clients, an exercise that a guy who owned an agency in New Orleans, Josh Mayer, taught me. And it's been an incredibly powerful exercise. And I want to show you all how to do it, to figure out what it is you're going to do. Because remember, we now know who our customer is. We know what they want. But we got to figure out what we want and how we're going to offer it, right? So what I'd like you to do on that piece of paper or on your iPad or whatever you want to do, draw an XY coordinate graph. You know how it works. You have an X coordinate and you have a Y coordinate. So it's just two lines that leaves you with four spaces, just like a SWOT analysis, just an XY graph. In the lower eastern side, the bottom right corner, I want you to write the letter A. In the bottom left corner, quadrant, I want you to write the letter B. In the quadrant above that, I want you to write G. And then in the right-hand side, upper quadrant, the northeast, where New York would be on a map, I'd like you to write the letters U, Q. I can always send you this if you don't have a paper and pen in front of you. And then on your own time, not while we're together, very simply, under, I'm sorry, I gave you the letters backwards. I'm looking at this in reverse. On the bottom right, you're going to write a B. On the bottom left, you're going to write an A. I apologize for that. In the quadrant that has the B stands for bad. And you're going to write all the things you're bad at. This is navel gazing. Do this on your own. You don't have to share this with anyone. So be honest. These are the things you're bad at. Then the G stands for good. And you're going to write the things you're good at. The A stands for average. And you're going to write the things you're average at. So you've pretty much established, I'm good at this. I'm so-so at that. I suck at this. That's how it's done. The UQ would ordinarily be great. Here's the things I'm great at. But instead, you're going to put the UQ stands for uniquely qualified. Here's the things that I can do that I don't know a lot of people can do. These should be functions, by the way. So in Rick Lozano's case, it would be, the UQs would be play guitar, write songs, speak to audiences, understand the different industries that he understands. You put your UQs there. Doesn't mean other people can't do them, but you're uniquely qualified to do these different things. Once you've done all that, which again is not going to happen in this time period, but once you've done all that, you're going to look at all the things you're bad at and all the things that you're average at, and you're going to put a big X through them, and you're going to stop doing them. Dr. Bill Werther at the University of Miami, he was one of the professors, at the PhD professors at the Graduate School of Business at UM, did a big study on people improving their talents. And after years of study and all kinds of clinical programming and lots of fundraising, lots of grants, pretty much what they figured out was that if you work really hard to improve yourself at the stuff that you're not that good at, if you're bad at it, you can become average. And if you work to improve the things you're average at, you can possibly become good at them. To which you would say, who wants to be average or good? Now, I'm not talking about hobbies. I work on playing the guitar all the time. I've maybe made it to average, and I don't think I'll ever make it to good, but that's okay because I enjoy doing it, and that's not how I make my living. But the things that truly matter, that you need to be exceptional at, working on the things you're not good at will not get you there. They'll just get you better to where you're bad or average. So you eliminate the things you're bad at, you eliminate the things you're average at. That's not hard to do because you're bad at them. Nobody likes to do stuff they're bad at. And nowadays, there's plenty of places where you can find people, whether you're using Elance or TaskRabbit or virtual assistants or whatever, you can find people to do the stuff that you're not good at and you don't want to do. The hard thing is to take that big red magic marker and put a big X in the quadrant of the things you're good at because you're good at them. You get attaboys and attagirls. People pat you on the head. People say, wow, that was really good. You're really good. Problem is, there's lots of people who are good. And if you're going to do stuff you're good at, then you don't really get to shine. So you move over to the UQ. Here are the things I'm uniquely qualified to do, and they're functions. So I'll use Rick as an example because I've seen him present, and I know how good he is, and we're friends, so I can maybe insult him a little bit, and he'll still be friends with me. All the things that I listed that he's so good at, he's a great singer-songwriter, he's a great performer, he's a great guitar player. Let's be fair. There's other people who are really good at all of those things also. So that doesn't make those particular things unique. It makes, he's absolutely qualified, but he's not really uniquely qualified because he can get up and play guitar and I can get up and play guitar. He's much better than I am. There's no question, but it's like my Spanish. People hear me speak Spanish and they say, wow, you're fluent. And I say, I am, because you don't speak Spanish. If you spoke Spanish, you would know I speak Spanish like Tarzan, but you can't tell. So he's not uniquely qualified to do those things. However, when you put them together, when you create what is called a skill stack, all of a sudden he is uniquely qualified. We know lots of people who are great guitar players. Many of them sit at home in their basement and they do arpeggios all day long. And you might tell people, oh my God, my friend is as good as Eric Clapton or as good as Stevie Ray Vaughan or as good as whoever. But if they don't go out and play for anybody, it doesn't actually develop anything. Where Rick becomes unique is that he can write a song, he can perform the song, he can speak on stage, and he has this incredible corporate background that he can bring forward to provide his audiences with the knowledge that they need to be better at what they do. That skill stack is the uniqueness for point 3, which is know what you offer. We know what they want. We know what you want. Now we know what you offer. All of a sudden, the selling proposition starts to become much more interesting. But I want to take it a step further. I asked you to list those things as functions, really as verbs, action words: play guitar, draw pictures, evaluate people for jobs, design interiors, whatever it is. Those are functional skills. I want you to ladder up from those and figure out why those are your functional advantages. I want you to move out of the idea of function and into the idea of context. I don't want to embarrass anybody, so I'll use myself as an example. When I did this exercise, what I came up with was, I see things different. I mean, I come up with great ideas. I was the creative director at the agency. That's what I was good at, coming up with great ideas. I could present those ideas because I can draw, I can play music, I can write, I can speak in public. So I could do that. And I can get people excited about them. It's just a skill that I have. I know I can. So those are the functions. But if I ladder up higher, what I realize is I see things differently because of whatever my personal creative vision is. I can present those things because I'm comfortable in those different environments, and I can get people excited about them because I have that sort of natural enthusiasm that people get excited. When I put those together, that becomes the unique qualification. That becomes my highest and best use, because we have lots of people in the agency who could come up with incredible ideas. But if I would say to them, hey, I can't go to the meeting tomorrow, could you present it to the client? They would open their eyes like the frog on the highway, because they didn't want to actually do that. Or if they could write, they couldn't draw their ideas or whatever. So I combine those skill sets. Now, before you think I'm bragging, there's a whole other side to this equation, which are all the things I'm terrible at. If you go back down to the quadrant and you look at bad, what did I have in bad? Follow-up, details, accounting, doing my taxes, doing all the stuff that my mind just does not wrap itself around, and I can't stand doing. I'm better off not doing it, which is why I hire an accountant, why I hire someone to do my taxes, why I don't keep books anymore. I just keep a spreadsheet of what I'm owed and what I was paid, and then I do my job. So it's not a matter of bragging. It's a matter of understanding what you offer, because once you can do that, then you can sell anything. Because the truth is, the products or services that you're trying to sell have to be good or nobody would buy them. But just because they are good doesn't mean anybody will buy them either. Instead, we have to bring something to those products or services that says to the customer, the client, the consumer, these products, these services will make your life better. Remember, we know who they are. We know what they want. We know what we want, which is to make this deal happen, to sell this product or service, and to do it in a way that helps them understand. And then we know what we offer, which is what allows us to create the uniqueness that makes that they can only do business with us. When that happens, we eliminate all of the other issues, because now there is a very clear connection between who we are, who they are, and how the outcome is beneficial to them. The key to this concept is a very, very simple phrase that I wrote years ago when I wrote the book All About Them, which is exactly about that concept. Make it all about them, not about you. Good brands make people feel good. But great brands make people feel good about themselves. And when we can figure out not how to make people feel good about what we've done for them and not how to make them feel good about who we are, but if we can make them feel good about who they are, everything changes. And I can use an example with someone in this room, in this Zoom rather, who I didn't know was coming, but Vic Coppola is here. And Vic Coppola has an amazing career arc. And quite simply, what he does is PI personality tests. We know there's lots of kinds of personality tests, right? Like I said, whatever product it is, there's other good ones. And I can't tell you scientifically that one's better than the other, whether it's PI or Myers-Briggs or DISC. And there's a whole bunch more. I'm sure Vic could tell you, but I'm going to turn his mic off if he tries, because that's not the point. But Vic does PI. Okay, so I'm an employer. I need to find good people. What I want is that they'll do their job. What they want, of course, is to make money, is to have a successful career, and on and on. What Vic does that nobody else does is because he's been doing this, I think, since the Peloponnesian War, or at least the Crimean War. What he does that's so valuable is that he has looked at thousands of PI charts. So he can look at one and instantly say, okay, this person is this, that, and the other thing. To be fair, that's what people who do what Vic does do. I'm not sure if I mixed my tenses there properly, but you know what I mean. In his industry, that's what people do who are good at what they do. But Vic takes it a step further because of who he is. So when Vic worked with our agency, when he consulted with us, he did my PI and he did my partner Roberto's PI. And then every time we would look to hire someone, they would take the test. And Vic would tell me, okay, this person will do this, this, and this. You can count on him for this. You can't count on him for that. Fine. That's what I paid for. But he'd go a step further and he would say, now, let me tell you why this guy is going to drive you nuts. Because you are a blah, 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 and this guy's going to do that. Can you deal with that? Because this guy's good. He would do a good job, but there's no way this guy's going to thrive in your office. He didn't do it as a value judgment. He wasn't telling me you're a crappy manager because you can't work with people. But he was adding that other level. So what would happen? I would then hire the people based on his recommendations, and I would hire people who would work out. And then I'd feel good about myself because I was smart enough to go to Vic. How did I learn to be smart enough to go to Vic? Because one time he told me, oh, don't hire this guy because you will throw him out after he does this, whatever it was. But I knew better and I hired the guy. And Vic was right. It's kind of like when you use Waze and Waze tells you to turn. You go, no, I'm not going to turn here. I'm going to go. And then you're stopped because the building fell down and then you're stuck for 24 hours, right? It was exactly the same thing. But it wasn't simply that I was able to hire better. It was that I could look at myself as a better executive, as a better business owner, because I was hiring better. That's because of what Vic did. I knew that. I knew that I could find his services elsewhere, similar services. I'm not comparing you, Vic. You're uncomparable. I know that. But I could never find someone who could do this. His skill stack was not that he could evaluate PI tests or he could provide PI tests. His skill stack was that he could do something that nobody else could do. He could see around corners because he could put A and B together. He's so good at it, and I've talked about it so much that I've asked Gloria, my wife, to take the test also so he could tell us where we get along and not get along, and she refuses. She says, we've been married 40 years. All it's going to do is screw things up. I said, yeah, honey, but maybe it could be even better. But she won't do it because she knows better. But do you see the difference? All of a sudden, the things you're selling that you can't figure out, why are they better? Why are they worse? Why are they different? How am I going to do that? How am I going to sell, as Howard Gossage wrote, pink air? How am I going to sell a product that no one's ever seen before? How am I going to sell ice to Eskimos? How am I going to sell sand in the Sahara? Whatever saying you've been using to explain to yourself why you haven't been able to sell the same things that nobody else can sell is because at the end of the day, the only thing you're selling is you. And the only way you can sell you is to understand who you are, what you offer, what you want, and why you matter to the people you want to sell to. Once you know that, you can give that to them. Once you give that to them, they're no longer buying a product or a service. They're buying you. And if there's anything that could be described as selling something nobody else can sell, it's you. Thank you very much. I would be delighted to answer any questions that you have. And I'll also make you guys an offer. If you do that exercise and you fill out that UQ quadrant, and then you need to go up to the ladder to figure out the why, let me tell you that you're going to have a hard time with it. I'm not saying that to scare you away. I'm saying it because I've done this hundreds of times. And that's usually where people fall down, because what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, what I'm adequate at, what I'm great at, that's kind of obvious. It takes work, but you can do it. But why I'm good or great at those things, that's what people miss out on. I figured it out, and I actually came up with a mantra for myself. I actually keep it taped on my Yak in the Box. I pulled it off when I showed it to you. I'm going to put it back. But this is my mantra: show up, blow up, and giddy up. That's what I'm good at. I can come on one of these, I can do my thing, and then I can say goodbye and I can leave. Hanging around is not my strong suit. I know that. So I evaluate what I'm going to do, essentially what I'm going to sell from this. It has created just absolute peace of mind for me because I know who I am and I know what I have to offer. And I would love if it can do the same for some of you. So when you get to the latter stage and you can't get from function to why, send me an email. My email address is right there. It's just my name, bruce@bruceturkel.com. Send me a text if you have my phone number. Do reach out. Don't do it on social media, please, because I won't see it for weeks. And then when I do, you won't remember why you reached out to me. But send me an email and say, hey, I'm stuck here, and we'll get together and I'll help you with it. The reason I'm willing to do that is because I know it works, and I know what an incredible benefit it is to understand how this works. Questions? Yes, Robin, go ahead.
You. I got a little confused with the G, U, Q, A, and B, right? So I don't know whether it really matters which box is which, but you said to put a line through the X through the good and the bad.
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to draw it because I should have actually had visual audio visual aid. So hang on a sec. I'm going to draw this for you. So okay. So this is what it looks like.
Okay. Okay.
So the B is bad, the A is adequate, the G is good, and the UQ is uniquely qualified.
And so we're putting the X's through which? All of them except for UQ?
Correct. Correct. Now, again, if you love to cook, but you're only good at it, I'm not saying you personally, but whoever, leave it. Keep doing it. But if you're a chef in a 4-star restaurant and you're only okay at it, then you better find someone to do it for you. We're really talking about finding that really tip of the iceberg, the apex, the star on top of the Christmas tree, so you can figure out where to apply your talents for the best results to sell the things that nobody can sell.
Cool. Thank you so much.
And then you'll take those UQs, remember, those are functions, those are verbs. And you'll look for the connections between them, because one by itself is very nice, congratulations, but it's not any kind of competitive advantage. But the group, like with Vic, his ability to read PI charts, none of us can do it, but lots of people in that industry can do it. But nobody has the ability to understand the other person, and he's figured out how to combine two to look for the patterns for good and bad. And that's where the differentiation comes. Then you have to figure out, why is he good at that? And it might be his upbringing. It might be that he's particularly perceptive. I don't know the answer to that. But if you know that, it'll show you what your other opportunities are. Did I answer your question, Robin?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, my pleasure.
I have a quick question, Bruce.
Yeah,
You were talking about the client knowing what they want. And in some cases, like you were talking about the hotel chain or whatever, they thought they knew what they wanted, but until you actually kind of, explored it with them, they couldn't articulate exactly what they wanted. So how do you, I mean, obviously in any pitch, I work in marketing as well. You're trying to get to people's pain points, or you know them ahead of a meeting, but often they're not exactly sure. They don't know what they want, but they kind of know what they don't want. How do you get them to define that a little more clearly? And that's question number one. The second question is, and how do you address something if you're presenting something that you find as a solution, say for greater engagement for, an organization or an industry that they haven't they know there's a problem there, but you're bringing a solution that isn't something that they've overtly said this is our pain point.
So, two things. To answer your first question, it's actually easy to say, it's not easy to do. But I had a 4-year-old at the time when I was doing all of this. And I realized that you have to sit in that meeting and be a 4-year-old. And 4-year-olds have one word they say over and over. It's only got 3 letters. Why? Why? Let me have a cookie. No. Why? Because you'll ruin your appetite. Why? Because it's dinner in 3 hours. Why? Because he gets home and I've already cooked dinner and she's going to come home and we're going to eat. Why? Right? Not, oh, that makes sense. Oh, okay, good point. So
Right.
what do you want? I want more sales. Why? What do you mean why? Because I want to sell more product. Why? Well, because then we get more revenue and we need more revenue. Why? What do you mean why? I want more money. Why? Oh, because we want to move and we want to do this. But you have to be, you'll have to probably come up with a more clever way. I would say to them, I have a 4-year-old at home. And when I get home and my 4-year-old wants to go for a walk and it's nighttime and I say, no, it's why? It's too dark. Why? Oh, because the sun rises during it, right? I say, so I'm going to do that to you and you're not going to like it. But understand, I am doing this for your benefit. By the way, today, using AI, you have lots of ways to answer that question. One of the most valuable words you can use in an AI search is continue. AI gives you the answer. You don't say, tell me more about blah, 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 or do that. Just say continue. And then AI gives you more and continue, because what happens is AI will try to figure out other ways to show you what it is and give you opportunities or options that you might not have thought of. Some will be good, some won't be good at all. But basically, you're saying the same thing. Why? 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 And just constantly until you think, you know what? I have some idea of what's going on here. And that's going to require your professional acumen to know that. The second question you asked is, it's a very bad position to be in to answer the question nobody's asking. So if you have a solution, but they don't see the problem, you don't have a solution. You have something they don't want that costs them a lot of money.
Right.
And I can use an example that Rick probably knows this person. I'm not going to say their name, but a friend of mine, quite a successful speaker, but he's never run a business and he speaks on business issues and it's fine. He knows his lane, but he had this new idea that he was going to do something called the power of the pause. And the idea was, when you have a problem, instead of running off helter-skelter headlong to solve it, pause, take a moment, think, plan. Makes perfect sense. When you are worried about something, when you've had a tragedy in your life, they say you shouldn't get divorced you shouldn't get married or sell a home within 1 year of a divorce, a death, or whatever, right? So he wants to promote this idea, the power of the pause. It sounds great. He's going to write a book, The Power of the Pause. Oh, the power gives you the Scooby-Doo head, huh? Pause, power, what? All of it is good, but there's one problem. Never in the history of the world has a CEO been at a board meeting with his meeting planner saying, you know what we need to tell our people to do? Slow down. When they have a problem, they should slow down. They shouldn't solve it. They should take it. Never. So if you're selling the power of the pause, you're answering the question nobody's asking. Now, if he talked instead about the cost of running headlong into an issue, about why it's detrimental to do these things without a plan, and then said, how do you solve this? It's very simple. Embrace the power of the pause. Then you go, oh, it's the same comment. It's just couched in a different way. So if you find that you're so good that you're seeing around corners and you're bringing solutions that they don't yet have, I mean, to problems they don't yet have, you have to think of a different way of communicating that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anyone else? Well then, thank you all for being here. I know we're planning a third one of these. I hope you find that you'll get the invitation. I hope you'll join us again. I hope you found this useful. Love to hear comments, love to hear thoughts.